Hey everyone, this is Cindy at an open door, and today is Friday the 13th, December 13th, 2024, and this is Reality Check. When those who are either listening to the recording later or are with us in the room are choosing to step in at whatever level um, that is their choice, but to choose to have a direct experience based on the pointings of the teachings held in Helen Hamilton's reality check. That was a lot of words. Okay, so as what has become our habit, I have queued a Helen Hamilton clip. It's about 10 minutes, 9, 10 minutes, after which beautiful Michelle is going to begin reading for us. Here we go.
And again, I have to ask, is it going to be useful to reject that old thinking? Or is it much more efficient to basically see this is just old thinking? And as I begin to see this problem, this karmic pattern, this relationship issue, this lack of something I need, this too much of something I want to get rid of, is all based on this idea, the remnants of this idea that I am a separate being. What if clearing up our karmic patterns was really as simple as that? Can I still have problems with other beings if I've realized that I'm everywhere? Or perhaps clearer said, if I'm still having problems with other beings, have I fully realized I'm everywhere? If I'm still wanting or needing things desperately that I can't seem to get, have I fully embraced my universality? Have I come to recognize yet that I must be the thing I'm trying to get? I must be that other being that I'm having a challenge with, a difficulty with. And just like everything else, our mind really simply only needs understanding and love and acceptance, that it's become so fractured, so splintered, so fragmented only because it's been trying to do a job based on the wrong information. It's been trying to sort out problems based on the wrong information. It's been trying to get you what you need, whether that's an inner thing such as love and respect or security, or an outer thing such as time or money or the right relationship, based on this false premise. So I hope this kind of inspires you to make friends with your mind a little bit, or a lot, or completely, because it really was only when I began to try to understand where my mind was talking so much, when I began to want to recognize what was fueling the thoughts, rather than just looking at the thoughts themselves. What is making my mind think? What's sustaining this repetitive, habitual thought that is just going on and on? And it really was only one thing every time, that I was trying to fix a problem that seemed very real as a separate being, that just began to evaporate when I remembered my universality again. And even the greatest problem of all, how to become, live as, move into that universality, which mind spends a lot of time thinking about, doesn't it? How to realize and how to be this universal self. Even this problem is fixed by recognizing what's true. I am already that. To whatever extent I have seen that in this moment, if I remember that, apply it to anything that's coming up in mind, It's like a soothing balm to the mind. It begins to allow it to go back into silence. And as we confirm again and again that every single issue that could affect our separateness, our separate being, no longer applies. It's not avoidance of problems. It's just moving to that place where they no longer exist, and therefore our life begins to reflect that back to us. If we keep fighting against our mind and blaming it for our disturbance, our lack of serenity, then we're never going to get to the end of it. We're only going to make it worse. There's no way as a separate being to come to the end of suffering. There's no way when we're pushing against our thoughts that have been generated from the idea that we're a separate being to come to the end of suffering. But there is one answer that works every single time. Is this true for my universal being? I am the universal being. There is nothing other than me, nothing outside of me. I am everywhere at all times. I cannot be absent from anywhere. Anything that I perceive or experience or interact with, any other being that I come across, must be this universal being also. And like anything in an authentic spiritual path, the solution is always much simpler than we give ourselves, than we allow ourselves to really see. The solution is to move to the place, the true place, to take a stand as that place, that universal being, where none of our issues can survive. Not because we're ignoring them or avoiding them, but they simply were never true in the first place. By seeing my every awareness, we begin to experience that. We begin to notice these issues dropping away. So if it sounds too simple, I would urge you to try it anyway, just to give it a go. Make friends with your mind if you want to, and just spend some time thinking about, can your mind ever fix the problems that are appearing in your life if it's doing it with the wrong information? If you've ever tried to put some furniture together, one of these flat pack things that comes, I tried recently to put a bed together, and a single bed, ended up asking for help from Ian because the diagram was completely misleading. All the pieces were there, which was great to start off with, but this diagram, it had all these step-by-step things, and it just looked completely like gibberish to me. So if you haven't got a clear plan, a clear outline of how to do that, when you put it together, it's going to look something very different to the picture, isn't it? And eventually you realize that's not working. Putting my life together using the mind, trying to think my way through things and problems isn't really going to do it. But I can investigate whether the problems are really true for what I really am, actually. And this just naturally takes the pressure off our mind, and it begins to relax, begins to go back into silence. It begins to give back all the energy that's been invested in it, that leaves us feeling exhausted. Can you imagine for a moment how much energy it takes to constantly try to fix all this multitude of problems that appear as a separate being, when in fact we never have actually been a separate being, ever? Can you imagine how much energy it takes to believe ourselves to be cut off from everything and everyone, when actually everything and everyone is inside us? We are that space in which all this is arising. So it's a simple way to kind of begin to fix these issues. See if you can make friends today with your mind a little bit more. See if you can leave some gap in your consciousness that maybe your mind isn't the actual problem. Maybe it's a symptom of some much more fundamental thing. And if you do, you'll find something wonderful begins to happen. You begin to feel much more whole. You begin to suffer less immediately. Even if your mind is still talking completely, you won't be able to push against it. You won't be able to suffer. You won't be able to resist. There is really nothing that any being can say about you as a separate being that is true, least of all your own mind, because that's never been what you are.
Anyone that would like to share anything before we start reading?
I would just say that that was so perfect it was just so perfect. I had a birthday party here last night for my youngest daughter, and upon reflection, I can see how the mind was trying to solve problems that didn't exist. Just trying to, and what she said about just old patterns, how they want to keep coming back as a separate being. So it was perfect for me. Settled everything down. Everything went just settled down.
Is there more? Alrighty. I am going to screen share, and our beautiful Michelle has agreed to begin reading. We tend to do, if any one of us at any given time wishes to sink into something that was just shared, whether it is Michelle or whoever's reading or one of us, we just unmute. Don't assume that I'm going to see a hand raise, and don't feel like you need to be polite and wait till we get to a natural stopping place when there's something that wants to be discussed. Okay, we go.
Okay, so yes, stop me at any time. Everybody, anybody, as you all know. Okay. The world only appears to be real until you see what it really is and what you really are. These statements may seem amazing and untrue right now, but I would urge you to remain open as we begin to break down the assumptions that make it seem as though you are living in a solid, tangible world inside a solid human body that is moving around in time and space. You will be able to take what you read and see if it is true when you apply it. Only then will you see that nothing is the way you have thought it was. Okay, I just have to say something here. So, Amy and I have been sharing some near-death experience stories, and I'm struck by so many people say that when they look at their body after they leave their body, that it looks like one woman said it looked like a meat suit, and then somebody else called it that it looked nothing like how they felt or what they were, and anyway, it was just interesting to me. So, okay, back to the reading. There's just the one, and that one is you. You are everywhere at all times, and you are not somewhere. Ideas like somewhere and everywhere don't apply to you if you are formless? Let's stop and check in right now. Take a moment to directly experience the answer to the question, what am I? And where am I? If you notice when you actually experience your true self, you will find you are not a thing, not a form. You can recognize that you are very much here, but where are you actually? Can you even say where you are and where you are not? Do you have any boundaries? It is important to rely only on what you can prove to be true and not to go back to thinking about what you are. Notice that your human body and thoughts seem to appear in this vastness that you are. But is that really what is happening? Is there you plus your body? In the next few chapters, I will challenge these assumptions, and you can prove to yourself it is not so, and come to see that there is no body, no mind, no thoughts, and nothing other than you. It will only be possible to understand these chapters if you are willing to question what you have come to believe in stone as true. It seems very real and logical to most people that they have a human body and that they have thoughts, so much so that they probably would never even think to question if it is so in reality. You are reading this book to find out what reality actually is. To do that, you must be willing to question what you may not have questioned before and to look at things in a different way. The following statements are true. If you let go of all assumptions, you will be able to experience them as true. Don't worry if right now they do not feel real to you as yet. We will work through the assumptions that get in the way of knowing. I would urge you to read the following statements that are true and notice any resistance to any particular ones. If you find some statements to be difficult to understand, or you understand them logically but cannot seem to live as that, make a note of it. Realizing one of these statements to be true will make it easier to understand all of them. Being formless means you are effortlessly here. Being formless means you are immortal. Being formless means there is nothing other than you, different from you or separate from you. Being formless means you never, ever end or begin. Being formless means you are unlimited and always have been. Being formless means you cannot die and were never born. Being formless means you can appear as forms and shapes and objects. Form is not different from formless. Being formless means you know everything because everything is you. Being formless means you are infinite. You can never run out of anything, be lacking in anything, or want or need anything. If your experience of life or reality is different from this, then there are still thoughts and assumptions getting in the way of your perception of reality.
Okay. So who has an experience other than this? I'm curious if there's even one of those statements. I have a conceptual understanding and acceptance of the statements. And there are moments when I'm getting them. But like right now, in this moment now, this experience is distracted, waiting for someone to come and take this car. It's just a storyline running. And there's a real pull. And there's something here that literally believes it and says, yeah, but can't let them take the car unless it's who I want them to take the car. And so I'm just curious where you are. It's kind of cool to sit here and say, I accept these teachings, and the current experience appears to conflict with that.
I will say, I just come back to Francis Lucille saying, I don't really know anything for sure, but I know that I'm here, you know, and I don't know everything because everything is me. I mean, I know that intellectually, but I don't know everything. And as Michelle said, when we watch these testimonies of folks that have near-death experiences, they do say that, you know, everything is direct mind-to-mind communication, just knowing everything's talking to them, through them, as them. But in this body, in this existence, apparent existence, I have to go on faith that is something that I have experienced that I'm not experiencing in this moment, but that is experienceable. Because I have never had the experience of knowing everything. I will only say that the more I embody these teachings, the more open I am, and I find I do know more wordlessly. My intuition, I trust it so much more, and it's so much more accurate, and I'm no longer surprised by things that I would have been surprised about 10 or 15 years ago. You know, I don't have a memory of being born, and I don't have a memory of dying. But that doesn't mean I know I'm infinite in this body. Not that the body's infinite, but I don't have the awareness of being born or of dying, but that doesn't necessarily translate for me into my consciousness being infinite. So again, I take it on faith and trust. Thank you.
Anybody else? Should we let Michelle finish the chapter? Right.
May I share?
Yes.
Okay, wait, I'm running over here.
Are you literally running, Rana? Because recently you stated that you don't even like to walk. So are you
I just thought
literally
it was the
running?
coffee cup talking.
I don't know what I am. So this line, you understand them logically, but cannot seem to live as that. I do understand them logically now, right? The first few times these kind of ideas were presented, it was like, you know, and sitting in a, you know, like a guided meditation with Helen and doing something where you really get that sense of that your body doesn't really end anywhere or begin anywhere, you know, that sense. I've had that glimpse, you know. And also as these ideas, when we talk about them, when I see them on a piece of paper, there's like this flutter. There's a sense of an excitement there, not so much resistance. But then the head engages, right? It's like, I want to understand. right? Help me understand it so then I can experience it is the belief there. So I think that's why I just spoke up right there. There's the belief. If I understand it intellectually, then I can experience it. And I don't think that's true. So thank you.
Can I say one more thing?
You could
I
say two more
have
things.
I have had direct experience of something that Michelle and I have watched in our near-death videos, and that is being in another mind's awareness. I have had that direct experience during a really deep meditation, and it was so real. I knew everything about the person. I knew all their friends, all their family. I knew everything. And it was in an instant. And it was in meditation. But I could easily say that I do that in dreams as well. So just wanted to, I have had experience of it, but in this daily waking life in here, it doesn't remain as a constant.
Thank you. Is there more, or shall we finish the chapter?
The last I would like to add is that I feel like there's a progress because as I slowly read through each of those, the sense of I don't know comes up rather than a complete rejection and resistance. There's like an opening and it's like, I don't know. And that's okay.
All right, let's finish the chapter.
Okay, did you all by chance, when I was reading, did you hear any snoring in the background when I was?
Yes, I was going to say, do you have a dog near you?
Yes, she is. It's so, is it distracting? I'm like, girl, it's so loud. Do you want me? Is it distracting?
No, but no, it's funny.
Okay, here, pay attention. Pay attention when I'm reading. No more sleeping. Okay. 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 We will look at these statements again, and explanations will be given later in the book once we have broken down the assumptions that get in the way. For now, it is enough to know that the highest level of enlightenment is where we live from and as these statements. Reality is already how it is. Nothing is going to change in understanding what you read in this book, but you will simply be finally able to see how it really is and always has been. The world will still appear to be there. Your body will still continue to function and do what it needs to do. Everything will remain exactly as it is, but you will be able to see clearly. The rest of this book will be simply different ways to say the same thing, and so I would suggest reading it all at least once, and then picking which one fascinates you most and deeply investigating it. Each chapter will help to repeat the fact that form and formless are the same thing, but will approach it from a different angle to help bring to conscious awareness what the assumptions are that are stopping you from seeing this fully.
Is that just a thumbs up or a hands up?
I have a question. The sentence at the top of page 15. For now it is enough to know that the highest level of enlightenment is where we live from. Is she implying there are other levels?
Finish the sentence.
Okay, for now it is enough to know that the highest level of enlightenment is where we live from and as these statements. I just have the question, other levels? I'm not sure what she's saying there.
My working understanding of that sentence is that my current goal, if there is a goal here, is to meet those statements. So when I know that the form and the formless are one and there's nothing separate, blah, 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 I expect there may or may not be a newer level of understanding.
Okay.
The other part of this, which is so interesting, I have been spending a lot of time with Paul Selig, and recently he said, this is the highest level you can get to while you're still embodying form. And then he said, there are other levels when you're no longer having the experience of form. But for right now, while you're hanging out, enjoying a human experience, there is a ceiling. So that made a lot of sense to me.
So I'm still reflecting on your question about these statements, and do we experience it or do we just know it? And that was a very hard question for me, because I definitely experience these statements. And yet I also experience what you were saying and Amy was, I experience both. Does that make sense?
Well, my experience
Experience both.
lately,
It's not like it's an in and out. I know the in and out feeling, that happened for a long time. But now it's more all one thing. Like this seeming existence in this body is fully present and here. It doesn't go away because I'm also experiencing all of it. So I don't know how to explain it. So I guess that's why I didn't try to answer the question.
For me, I feel like I'm on the verge of being everything that the statement say, but so I don't think there are all levels, or there are dimensions, or what's a law of one called of densities within the illusion. And but I think in what she's talking about, what comes to mind is isness. There is no knowing in isness, there just isness. So when you experience what the sentences say, then you just are. You're just infinite isness. But when you experience levels or densities or dimensions, you're still in an illusory state. You're still identifying as self. Self may be a dense body like we're all experiencing right now. It could be an ephemeral body, which you can see through, but still see the shape of a body. It can be a light body, which is nothing but light. And so that's all within the illusion. That's what I understand as levels, or that we may experience something different as what we are, because we may be experiencing different dimensions or densities within the dream. It's not reality. Reality is everything. So if you're just experiencing everything that you experience, then I think that's why I think I'm on the verge of understanding or being or isness of what all these statements are. And I'm just trying to let it be what it is, beingness, regardless of what comes up, whether it be a thought or a belief or understanding or knowledge, or it's just what I'm experiencing in the present moment.
Yes.
But I'm confused.
So I just want to add something. I think something clicked in here. I have an example of what I was trying to say. My example is this right here, right now, with each of you and all of you. Many, many times, like 90% of the time when I'm here with you, I experience oneness and all of us being one. But I also, at the very same moment, experience each of you as individual, I don't know, that phrase Cindy uses, individuations. And all of it is beautiful. It's so simple. This makes it sound like it's something very exotic and almost unattainable. And yet to me, it's so simple. It's everything. It's not either or. It's both and.
I agree. Yeah.
So it's not like I have to get there. Just have to let it be. That's what I think you were saying, Richard. And as I let it be and I feel the fullness of the moment and the fullness, oh, the beauty and the love of being at one with you. You sounds separate, but it's not. It's like it's an embracing of all of us together as one, and yet there's still the individual beauty.
So can I respond?
Please.
And I'm only going to respond to this. From my perspective here, what she's pointing to doesn't feel complicated. There's no argument here. And that I find interesting that you said she seems to make it so complicated. And I'm curious as to from what point of view. I'm looking at what she's saying, and what I'm hearing is not the experience of being formed, because she literally said form and formless are the same, right? What she said was if you are in this experience in any given moment, right, where there is this experience happening where you feel separate from anything, then there's simply an opportunity to be with that. And to me, it's a beautiful, simple kind of, like right now, I can tell you I'm feeling really peaceful, and I'm aware of this space, and there's something in here that literally is pulling to a world out there to make sure this car goes to the right place. And the contraction around that indicates that there's something in here that has a potential that needs to defend and is still feeling somewhat frightened. I'm not currently identifying as like I'm not, how do I put this? I am not lost in it, but I'm very aware of it. And I'm aware of how it's pulling me some aspect of my attention out. Something here I am currently seeing is not trusting the natural flow. And for me, that's what she's pointing to, without guilt, without shame, without needing it to be different. Right now, I'm like really happy to be here talking about this, witnessing a pull into believing that there are others out there that are either helping me or hurting me. I'm just watching it. And it doesn't matter that I know technically it isn't true, because I accept that that can't be in the grander scheme. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here for many reasons. But it's not changing the fact that the experience is happening here. Like and it's old and it's history and it's ancient but there's something here that will feel much better when the car is safely at Grand Island Auto Tech. And there's literally nothing, like there's no guidance to walk away and do something about it right now, other than watch how there's something here that wants to feed this idea that something might go wrong. That's yeah. I don't. Does that make any sense to what you were sharing?
You know, what else I appreciate about that this book is so short, so thin. I mean, it could be read in one sitting, but I love that she says that this will be said in different ways with each chapter. I love that because, because it can land, well, as Sandra just shared, we all have different, we're one, but we all have different flavors and we experience things landing differently. So I really appreciate that.
Individuated expressions of the infinite invisible. Isn't that cool? Individuated expressions of the infinite invisible. That's what I've been saying lately because I can, and it feels right. All right, Michelle, do you want to keep reading? Does somebody else want to read? Where are we? Do we want to read? Is somebody wanting to share something else? Michelle, are you open to continuing?
Sure, I'm happy to, more than happy to. But please, if someone else wants to, jump up and down, raise your hand. Okay. Chapter 4, there are no forms or objects. Here is a basic error or assumption in our thinking process. Forms or things are real, and they are different from and separate from the formlessness. Here is the fact and what actually is true. There are no objects. There has been no manifestation. Manifestation / the world / all this quote unquote out there is just an illusion of vibration. Tangible and solid is only real in relation to the human senses. Most human beings would easily and automatically feel that they are sitting in a room that has a certain number of items in it, and they are reading this book. Only a few would question if the room was appearing inside themselves. Even fewer people would question which one of these viewpoints is more real and ask, am I in the room, or is the room in me? Occasionally, it occurs to someone that the two viewpoints are the same thing. One thing. They are two different perspectives of the one reality. The aim of this book is to help you get to that final realization, and to do so, we have to begin to destroy the concept that objects are real. There aren't any objects at all. The things you think you see are not there in the way you have thought they were. They only appear to be there, and they really are not solid. For something to be real, it must be eternal.
Right.
I have that last line underlined. I love that. For something to be real, it must be eternal.
So Michelle, does that mean you're real?
Kind of sounds like the first lessons of the Course in Miracles.
It does. It does, Richard. And that that piece of knowledge, information has been one of the guiding principles of my existence since I read it, of my understanding of anything since I read it. That's been an absolute anchor, thought, idea for me.
Rana.
I would like to take a moment to explore, is the room in me? And I would like to hear others' perspective or perception of how that might be experienced. I would start by saying what comes up for me is an idea or a concept that I've been told, right? That I project from the mind. But those are just words. And again, that's back to that, like, oh, my mind understands that sentence, you know, but that sense of the room is in me. I would love to hear thoughts about that or experiences about that.
I would offer that when there are several different clues. When we sit in meditation with the eyes closed, we can't tell where our body begins and ends. That's one clue. Another clue is the dream world, where we dream entire rooms or cities or landscapes, and all of them are within our own mind. A third clue comes with emotional content, where we have the experience of seeing suddenly that something we thought was true was only true for the limited mind, and that in fact it was a projection, and that I've been behaving as though what I projected was true when it's not true at all. That's a third clue.
That is very helpful. Very helpful.
I
Thank
can
you.
add a few more.
Yeah.
Next one I'd like to add is the science that indicates that there is a perception that we're seeing out there, but the images are being created in the center of the brain. And then there is some programming within the system that gives you the virtual experience of seeing something outside of yourself. But from a you love science, from a scientific basis, all seeing happens within the form. And then the next thing, since we spend so much time with direct experience, right now you're sitting, and even if you assume that the world you're seeing is outside of you, where is your idea that when you walk through a door, what exists on the other side? Where does it exist? It's the only place it exists. There's a map or a structure that states that if I were to open this door behind me, I would step into a hallway. There's no direct evidence of that here. There is an inference based on this program. That inference based on this programming is exactly the same inference that we have proven over and over again when we look at somebody in one of these rooms while we're speaking or not speaking, and they have a facial expression or they turn their video off or they look aside. There's a whole story that activates here about what's going on in their world. It just does. So it doesn't. And there's something here that believes that. There's no, we've already proven over and over, at least I've already proven over and over and over again, that whenever I make those assumptions, I'm misperceiving. That experience is exactly the same for the most part, other than there's a collective agreement within this space that outside that door there is a hallway. So maybe it's a little bit stronger than this. This is what Cindy thinks. And yet it's still just an inference. There's no direct evidence here.
What
Super
came to mind
helpful
for
as
me
well.
was,
Thank you.
I only, anything only is when I experience it. In other words, if I'm not experiencing a sight, a feeling, a touch, or a thought, it doesn't exist in my reality. It only exists when I experience it. So,
I have an example that happened last night. May I share it? I received a Christmas gift from someone that will remain nameless because it doesn't matter. What happened was I found myself feeling sad and guilty. And when I looked at what the thoughts behind it were, it was a whole story about someone I haven't seen for 3 years, haven't talked to on the telephone for 1. And this whole thing was created. And then the body was experiencing, for lack of a better word, a little bit of suffering. And there was a recognition of that. First, I heard in my head, she is not here right now. You know? And I recognized the story that had been created. And then the question came, how do I even know she exists? You know, so there was this real touching of who's thinking about this Christmas present, who's thinking about somebody else that is sent, you know, and there was that real recognition right there and a letting go and a surrender in that moment of thanks for the cookies, you know? So I think that's what we're pointing to here. You know, it felt real and the whole scenario, it was like in this moment, it affected the whatever, but it was all based on a story that wasn't real at all, that I can't even prove that that person exists. Thanks.
It reminds me of being on Match, and there are a few fake profiles on Match. They literally know what pictures to post so that they look real. They know what to say. And once at least I got caught for a few hours in this. Oh, wow. This fake romance. You know, a lot of people have been caught big time. Um, but that whole relationship is created in the mind. It's not based on any direct experience. I have a friend who fell in love with a woman in Poland. And there was an exchange that went on for 6, 7 months. And he's cleaning his house and he's waiting to receive her. And he kept saying, she hasn't asked me for money, so she's real. Like it went on for 7 months and poetry and exchanges. And he knew exactly who and what she was. And she asked for money for the plane ticket and it all came tumbling down.
it also reminds me of a lesson from the course. Give everything all the meaning it has for you. Change one word, existence. You give everything the existence it has for you.
About exchanging it for the word experience. I never looked to do that. So we got 5 minutes left. Shall we?
I have something to say about this page, that I wanted, I don't know. She says there are two viewpoints. Occasionally it occurs to someone that two viewpoints are the same thing. One thing. They are two different perspectives of the one reality. And it just, as everybody was talking, I was thinking, yeah, and it's not like it's supposed to be different. I mean, it's almost like we're trying to get out of, think it's supposed to be different. I'm supposed to perceive differently. It's like I get to do both. So I get to be in the, I guess I'm co-creating this, or the source is creating it, but I get to be this person sitting in this chair with this table that appears solid. She's going to talk about the wooden table next, but I also get to be aware that this is a vibrational field in which I'm creating things. And the whole question about the room, Rana, what a good question to bring that up. Am I in the room, or is the room in me? I experience both. So I'm not doing something wrong if I haven't gotten to the point of now understanding how large I am, how amazing I am. But when I do understand that, it just makes everything a million times better. So, there's this quote in A Courage to Change. I know you have that book, Cindy, because you read from it once, but I think it was Walt Whitman says, I never realized how large I am, how amazing I am. And the room is occurring within me. And at the same time, I'm in the room using this pencil to write some things down. It just fills me with joy that I get to do all of it. And it's almost, for me, the words are hard, like we always say, but it's like zooming out and zooming in. I get to zoom in and eat that piece of chocolate. And I can zoom out and taste the whole world.
All right, Amy.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
letting me talk. Oh, one more thing, Cindy, because I have to praise you for this. Praise us. Nowhere else. I've been through 30 years of seeking, finding, enjoying, learning. No, these conversations where we explore this, instead of just a teacher saying this stuff to us, and then us kind of understanding and walking away. But this is where we really, this is the best description, right? So thank you, Cindy.
Thank us.
I know what that means.
It's like a master class, a master gathering.
Even more, we're in it. We're in the water. We're not on the side of the pool learning how to swim. We're in the water here.
Well, what I wrote to William yesterday when I responded to this morning is that we are co-creating.
This brings me to why forgiveness is such an important part of A Course in Miracles. Because if you're living in Gaza right now, there's only one place that you can live. I mean, there are so many in the material reality, quote unquote, scarcity is true. Right? You can't have something accept love and share it and have it grow. You know, you either have land or you don't. You either have water or you don't. And this is something I think the human species is having to evolve into understanding while still in the body. You know, that there's no limit, that scarcity is illusion, and we're having to learn it while having a bodily experience. It's really phenomenal.
And at least from this perspective, I recognize that the most valuable thing I can do for people in Gaza or anywhere else in the world is to dedicate myself to this work. As soon as I start thinking, letting my thinking mind, imagine what's going on somewhere else, I I I contract and I feel depleted, and my ability to allow energy to flow through and extend love diminishes. And that's just at least from this perspective. All righty, everyone. I love us. I'm gonna hit the stop record. There we go.